The rain poured over the crowded bus station like the sky was grieving, washing dust into streams that curled around boots and bags. A young Navy soldier stood trembling near the ticket counter, trying, and failing, to hold back tears. Her uniform was soaked, her fingers clenched around a crumpled bus ticket, and her eyes, red, lost, desperate, searched every corner as if hope might appear from the shadows. Beside her, unnoticed by the rushing world, a little girl tugged her sleeve gently, holding out a tiny umbrella. Her voice, soft but brave against the storm, broke through like sunlight. She said, "Please don't cry, ma'am, you can borrow my dad." Before diving deeper into this emotional story, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to channel name if you believe kindness and second chances can change lives. Her name was Sarah, just 7 years old, with 2 pigtails tied unevenly by her father's rough but loving hands. She wore an oversized pink raincoat that smelled faintly of detergent, the cheap kind her father bought after working double shifts. The man she pointed to, her dad, was standing a few steps away, a tall figure with weary shoulders, carrying a threadbare backpack and a lunchbox. He was a single parent, a janitor by job, a soldier by heart, one who never served in a war, but fought battles life threw at him every day. His name was David. He looked up when he heard his daughter's words, confusion melting into gentle understanding as he approached the sobbing Navy soldier. The woman, named Lieutenant Emma Hayes, had just received word that her mother, her only family, was in the ICU miles away. She had been deployed for months and rushed home only to realize she didn't have enough money left for the last ticket. Her voice broke like glass when she whispered apologies to the ticket clerk earlier, hands shaking as she counted coins. She felt helpless, trained to be strong, yet wounded by life in ways no battlefield taught her. The bus was leaving in 15 minutes. Seats were full. Her legs trembled, heart racing, fear creeping into her lungs like smoke. When David reached her, he didn't speak like a stranger. He spoke like someone who had felt that kind of helplessness himself, more than once. He gently placed his large, calloused hand on her shoulder. His eyes, tired yet full of empathy, met hers without judgment. He asked her name, handed her a handkerchief, and offered the umbrella. Emma tried to smile but grief made her lip quiver. She hated appearing weak in uniform, but pain doesn't respect ranks. That day, she was not a soldier, she was a daughter afraid of losing her mother. David listened as rain drummed on the tin roof above them like a heartbeat. He remembered the day his wife passed away unexpectedly, leaving him to raise Sarah alone. He remembered collapsing in the hospital hallway, feeling his world fall apart. People walked around him, but no one stopped. No kindness reached him. He swore, since then, that no one near him would cry alone. No one would ever stand helpless if he had even a little to give. The buses were packed. The station smelled of diesel and wet clothes. People were pushing, shouting, impatient. The final bus to Emma's hometown was about to leave. David didn't hesitate. Without thinking of his own plans, he walked straight to the conductor. The money he had saved, carefully, painfully, was meant to buy groceries for a week. He had planned to surprise Sarah with milk, cookies, maybe a new pencil set she wanted. But he pressed the money forward anyway, asking for one more ticket. The conductor shook his head, full. For a brief moment, the world paused. Emma's hope flickered like a dying flame. David swallowed, heart tight. With no words, he lifted his daughter gently into his arms, kissed her forehead, and placed her on his own seat inside the bus. He told her he would meet her later, that she must stay brave. He turned to Emma, placing the seat in her name instead. Emma protested, voice filled with guilt, but Sarah wrapped her arms around Emma as if she was her mother and whispered something that shattered every cold wall around them. "Dad says we help people when God gives us the chance." Emma held the little girl close, tears warm against tiny cold cheeks. She didn't know these strangers, yet felt the safest she had in years. She promised she would repay them someday, though deep inside she feared she might never get the chance. As the bus started moving, David stepped back into the rain alone, watching his daughter through the foggy window until she disappeared into distance. He didn't know how he would return home with no money left, but he trusted kindness works like boomerangs, it always comes back. Hours later, Emma reached the hospital just in time. Her mother still breathing, frail but alive. She held her mother's hand and whispered how a stranger's kindness had carried her the last mile. Her mother, with fading strength, smiled and said that angels often hide in ordinary clothes, some with wings, others just with a father's love. Emma stayed by her side for days struggling with heartbreak and hope. She wanted to find David, but had no contact except the memory of his gentle voice and Sarah's smile. Back in the city, David walked home with Sarah sleeping on his shoulder after the long night. He spent the next days skipping meals so she wouldn't notice their empty pantry. His shoes broke, his jacket too thin for winter. But he never regretted giving up his seat. Sometimes kindness tastes like hunger, but fills the soul instead. 3 weeks later, on an early morning when dawn was just whispering light into the city, there was a knock at David's small rented room. He opened the door to find Emma standing there in her crisp uniform, but this time smiling through tears of joy. Behind her were Navy officials and volunteers carrying boxes, food, clothes, toys, and something else, papers that offered David a full-time job at the naval base as a maintenance supervisor, better pay, housing assistance, and school support for Sarah. Emma hugged him tight, Sarah clung to her leg laughing, unaware of how big this moment was. The room was still old, still small, but suddenly it felt like sunrise lived inside its walls. Emma visited often. She became like family, not replacing the mother Sarah lost, but filling a missing space of warmth. Together they celebrated holidays, shared dinners, laughed, healed. The bus station moment became a reminder that life changes in the seconds we choose kindness over comfort. David learned that giving doesn't make one poor, giving makes a heart abundant enough to receive miracles. And Emma knew she would never forget the little girl who lent her a father when she needed one most. As the story still breathes, dear viewers, if this touched your heart even a little, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to channel name. Let kindness travel further than this story, and let someone out there feel seen today. Before we end, please comment one thing you're grateful for in life. Your words might inspire someone silently hurting. Because sometimes, all it takes is a child's soft voice in the rain to remind the world that love still exists. And maybe, someday, each of us will hear a little voice say, "Please don't cry, you can borrow my dad."